The sound of the planets, frequencies to heal each chakra. The cosmic symphony begins at the moment we pronounce, in silence or in a barely audible murmur, the word vibration. When evoking it, an ancient echo travels from the very center of the stellar uterus that gave birth to the most intimate corner of our chest. Imagine, with an open heart and closed eyelids, that each planet is a sacred bowl floating in immensity. When percuting with the invisible drumstick of time, it releases a tone that crosses the void, curves about constellations and touches our skin as a welcome song. That song is not a mere astronomical rhyme, it is an opening war, a custodian of opportunities, a bridge that joins the flesh and infinity. When we talk about healing the chakras through planetary sound, we do not describe a poetic fantasy without foundation, we relate it in atavistic practice, a legacy of civilizations that raised their eyes to the firmament and discovered that the sky throbs with medicinal intentions. Even so, it is convenient to repeat it, screw it as a mantra and deploy it in multiple nuances. Healing with frequencies is to remember that we are tension ropes in the sidereal lyre, strings that resonate when an invisible finger brings them out to remind us who we are. It is necessary to stop in the astonishment. Each chakra has a color, an electric perfume, its own beat, and at the same time responds to the bell of a celestial body. We will say it otherwise, so that it is serious in the deep. The chakras behave as acoustic cameras, as internal cathedrals whose vibes vibrate with exclusive notes. It is not an abstract equation, it is an audible dance, a set of secret affinations that the soul recognizes as soon as he listens to the appropriate note. And as a story that reiterates to bloom, let's go back to the idea and unfold it in fresh images. If the chakras were gardens, the planetary frequencies would be the rain that descends rigorously in tenderness. If they were flashlights, the frequencies would be the breath that enlivens the inner flame. If they were rivers, the sounds would be the thaw that feeds them. Thus, the metaphor expands, it is repeated, multiplies, so that the understanding does not escape a single moment. First movement, root chakra, the serious tone of the earth and the discipline of Saturn. At the root, where the column melts with the ancestral memory of the ground, vibrates a deep drum. We feel its pulse when the bare feet kisses the sand or wet grass, and that pulse resembles the tectonic beat of the planet that sustains us. Again, we will say it with another cadence, the root chakra is the access door to the survival instinct, to the courage to remain, to the firmness of lifting internal pillars. Its sound is vigorously allied with the frequency of 194.18 Hz, which some studies attribute the sidereal day of the Earth, and with the deep note associated with the Saturn ring, rigorous guardian of time. Let us imaginarily listen to that vibration that rumbles as a gong at dawn. Each blow dissolves fears, each blow rewrites body history with safety ink. Again, differently, when the tone of the earth enters through our heels and rises winding, awakens a memory of rocks, roots and territories, we feel how the curtain of our strength gets out. We still repeat it in anecdotal key. Those who sing this frequency, either with a native instrument or through therapeutic audio, report sensations of roots, densest dreams, deep rest. They describe sleep impression under a protective mountain. And it is not accidental, the earth, with its pulse, whispers, stay, embody, it blooms here. We remain a moment in that note, then turn it again as a prism. Let's name the eighth low. We feel that it is a shamanic drum. Let's perceive it as the roar of a distant thunder that anchor in the cavern of the pelvis. Each word, every synonym, each metaphor, forms a concentric wave that penetrates a little more and records the certainty that the root responds to a power that is as old as the magma that bursts under the cortex. Let's say it again, the root chakra, tuned with the earth or with the gravitation of Saturn, produces a magnetic convergence that strengthens bones, muscles, wills. Second movement, sacred chakra, the changing tide of the moon and the caress of Venus. As soon as we move a few centimeters up, we arrive at the liquid chalice of the pelvic plexus. The sacred chakra is a source, a spring, a uterus that does not cease to recreate possibilities. His note feels like a wave that arrives, goes back and kisses the shore again. Our emotions behave, thus fluctuating wishes. The lunar frequency in 210.42 Hz, equivalent to the synodic orbit of the moon, awakens the internal seas and legitimizes the sorry for feeling. We repeat the scene from another angle. We see marine cilia browsing at the rhythm of Plimar. Imagine that they are our own passion swinging, invited to dance by a moon that sings in a silver voice. Moreover, my inner voice whispers another poetic comparison. It is as if the moon was a night mother who, with a cradle song, regulates the intimate tide and allows hormonal rivers to circulate without dams. Let's add another layer. When that same frequency is combined with the sweetness of Venus, refined around 221.23 Hz, a sound tapestry of sensual creativity, art, pleasure that slides down the belly is interwoven, removing memories of joy and disinhibition. We return to describe it in a testimonial way. Many listeners report that when exposing themselves to these frequencies they feel warm shudder, spontaneous lunar waters, dive in childhood lagoons. Others express that the sleeping poetry, inadvertent dance. And I reiterate it again with another verbal melody. The sacred chakra, vibrating with the moon and Venus, becomes a melting pot in which emotions curdle and art, the wishes themselves are sanctified, and the fault dissolves as salt in the primal ocean. Third movement, solar plexus, the radiant outbreak of the sun and the agility of Mercury. The solar plexus is a perpetual dawn, an intimate stove where the will cook its golden bread. In this area, the solar frequency, 126.22 Hz, feels like an invitation to graze with the fervor of a star that never stops burning. I will say it again, coloring the image, it is the silent roar of an inner bonfire that declares, to each click, the inalienable right to exist with power and brightness. Again, changing the lens, the sun, as the central luminaire of the system, models our perception of internal authority. Let's hear how its vibration permeates the diaphragm, widens breathing, and whispers the word autonomy. Around it, Mercury, with its 141.27 Hz note, slides like an agile messenger, promoting communication between mind and stomach, between idea and action. And I expose it again with another metaphor. I imagine that the plexus is a metallic drum. The sun hits with fire drum and Mercury adds quarks of ingenuity, until the music of courage becomes impossible to ignore. Different voices that have tried this resonance refer to waves of trust, visions of internal suns, memories of forgotten victories. I repeat it to reinforce, when the solar plexus receives the fair ration of soundlight, the self is straightened, personal limits are clarified, fatigue evaporates as illuminated mist. Let's insist with another linguistic turn to delve the footprint. The Sol-Mercury combination is a barrage that distills healthy ambition, charisma, leadership, ability to express a resounding yes or a non-respectful. This plexus, nourished by both planets, is a mirror that reflects our internal gold. Fourth movement, Chakra Heart, the pink symphony of Venus and the expansive hug of the Earth. We arrive at the bridge to the vegetable rainbow that links body and spirit. The heart, in its double electromagnetic and loving vibration, reacts sweetly to the 128 Hz that are associated with the sidereal year of Venus, planet whose name is synonymous with charm, tenderness, affective magnetism. Let's narrate it again with another cadence. Venus's note enters the chest like an odoriferous breeze of petals, as a spring rain on a dry field, such as the laugh of a child who disarms any shell. Later we add a counterpoint. The same earth that anchored the root is immersed in the chest, modulated in 136.10 Hz, stimulating chest expansion. Said with another metaphor, the heart is an immense nest of birds, Venus carries silk twigs and the earth provides fertile mud, so that the nest becomes firm and mull at the same time. We repeat the notion with other examples. Lovers who harmonize their breathing with this frequency declare to feel a powerful joint beat. Meditators confess inner forest visions where everything beats in an infinite green. We will reformulate the idea to prolong the echo. Heart means cor cordis, the biggest rope, the prelude to every universal song. Venus suggests a soft lute, the earth marks a firm bass, and together they produce a ballad that reconciles past and future in a throbbing present. The experience is to be at the same time root and cup, dew and root, hug and horizon, something like sustaining the universe in the whole of the hands and, at the same time, being sustained in a cosmic chest that never stops beating. Fifth movement, Garganta Chakra, the Iriad vibration of Mercury and the Valiente de Mars rhetoric. The throat is a blue corridor where words prepare to fly.
Mercury, god of eloquence and the roads, vibrates in 141.27 Hz, refined the day sonatic that makes him quickly dance around the sun. When that note poses on the etheric vocal cords, rivers of clarity sprout. Let's say it again, the mercurial bell opens the gates of saying, sharpens the metaphors, allows the truth to cross without stuttering. Let us add to the story the spark of Mars in 144.72 Hz, a frequency that alludes to the brave decision-making. When overlapping it, the verb is encourage and the song acquires guerrero thickness. Let's illustrate it again. It's like gathering spring breeze with blacksmith sizzling. The voice comes out fresh and burning, diplomatic and electrifying. Shared experiences describe tingling sensations on the neck, release of ancient knots, purifying sincerity discharges. We will reiterate the image with another poetic nuance. If the throat was a hanging bridge between two mountains, the mind and the heart. Mercury provides the wooden and Mars boards tightens the steel screws. Together they ensure that ideas cross the abyss with elegance and determination. Once again, in anecdotal key, there are those who claim that singing mantras in these frequencies unleashes cathartic laughs, repair confessions, sweet cries that are transformed into spontaneous sentences. Sixth movement, third eye. Jupiter's luminous fog and Neptune crystalline intuition. The space between the eyebrows is an observatory. From there, the soul appears its telescope and examines vastness without moving from the internal sanctuary. Jupiter, the magnanimous, clicks around 183.58 Hz and dilates the mental horizon. His note feels like a dome that expands and expands, extending the limits of perception. We will say it again with another breathing. When Jupiter resonates, the mind becomes a continent without banks, capable of hosting paradoxes, light languages, unlimited understanding maps. Meanwhile, Neptune, 211.44 Hz, slides like purple mist, permeating intuition with a dream mystery perfume. In his hug, the borders between reality and sleep soften. I will explain it differently. Listening to the Neptunian frequency is like immersing yourself in a lake where stars float. It is not known where the water ends and the sky begins, but one glimpses constellations that were before hidden. Anecdotally, those who bathe their strengthening with this combination report déjà vus esclaricating, creative solutions that emerge without didactics, encounters with archetypal symbols. Let's reformulate the metaphor. Jupiter delivers the key to an infinite library and Neptune light blue lights that guide between wet mystery shelves. Thus, the third eye not only sees, but it feels, smells, the subtle truth paves, and all this is repeated every time the double frequency sounds again in the silence of the pineal gland. Seventh movement, Chakra Corona, the ethereal crystallization of Uranus and the angelic choir of Pluto at the top of the head. A lot of thousand petals tremble with a whisper that almost touches the threshold of the inaudible. Uranus vibrates in 207.36 Hz, frequency that incites sudden revelation flashes. Pluto, with its 140.25 Hz note elevated to upper octaves, adds a depth that tear the final veils. Declare, in another round of words, that the crown is an open dome, a claro without crystal where rays of eternity are sneaking. To extend the image, each petal is an antenna. Uranus electrifies it with sparkles of innovation, Pluton the anchor to an abysmal stillness that remembers the origin. The mystical ear then perceives an almost silent chord, similar to the snowflake clink falling on the sea. Personal stories speak of sensations of supracephalic expansion, of white liver luminosities, of a peace that does not oppose anything because it has transcended the dichotomy. We rewrite with a philosophical tone. The crown is an interstitium where the self is diluted and the S sprouts, where the mind ceases to be a container in discovered ocean, where identity abandons the pronoun and recognizes an infinite verb. Uranus and Pluto in synergy invite metamorphosis, cold fires of consciousness, early in the morning word in thousands of simultaneous meanings. Cross-resonance interlude. As crucial as refining each chakra separately is to allow the notes to dialogue, overpass, they are based on chords. I will repeat it with new texture. Planetary frequencies form intervals, harmonics, choirs. They are not isolated soloists, but instruments of a sidereal orchestra.
Imagine an instant that the Earth plays a bass, the Moon an aquatic harp, the Sun a bright horn, Venus a pink violin, Mercury a phonophast, Jupiter a majestic organ, Neptune a fog theremin, Uran an electric guitar of crystals, Pluto an ice gong. That conjunction penetrates the tissues, orders chaos, rewritten cell narrative. I count it again from the anecdotal side. Planetary sound therapists have observed that, by superimposing frequencies, breathing is harmonized, brainwaves descend to the alpha or theta range, and the beats are coupled to a more coherent tempo. Users narrate visions of light geometries, spheres of color that revolve, childhood memories that heal without verbal intervention. And again, in literary key, it is as if the organism was a temple with stained glass. The sound light enters fragmented, and each panel colored the interior with nuances that were previously invisible. Spiral narrative: how to listen, how to feel, how to remember. Listening to planetary frequencies is not a purely auditory act, it is a vibrational baptism, a reunion with the original body score. We will say it repeatedly: it is not enough to hear by the external ears, an internal ear, an ear of the heart, an ear of bone and blood is required. A practitioner narrates that, when placing headphones, he first felt a tingling in the skin, then a movement of viscera, then a dance in dreams. I will reformulate. Another witness tells that after a week of sound immersion his tears changed his taste, as if sadness had metabolized his own bitterness in a sweet comfort. Let's add metaphor after metaphor to extend the road. Listening to these notes is similar to seeing how an old watch finds its lost pendulum. It is the same as observing a swarm that suddenly draws perfect spirals in the air. It is comparable to open a forgotten book and discover that the lyrics blink with silent music. Each description renews the previous one, each simile expands the range of possible sensations, each variation size the same sound statue with different chisels. Let's explore another, more intimate layer. There are those who fear facing silence between note and note. However, there rests the marrow of healing, because silence is the matrix where the vibration germinates. Once again, explained in another way, silence is the snow that allows us to clearly draw each footprint. It is the canvas without pigment where the sonora brushstroke acquires relief. It is the graceful light that shines the fireflies. History and science waves that are intertwined. Some chroniclers remember Pythagoras refining monochords to measure the distance between spheres. Others mention Johannes Kepler imagining heavenly chorals that sang inaudible nicknames. The scene is counted. A Greek philosopher tents a rope, a Renaissance astronomer calculates orbit, a wise Hindu recites mantras that equate the universe with Anum interminable. All these traditions today converge on neuroacoustic, psychoacoustics, research on binaural and isochronic beats. I will repeat it with narrative density: science and mysticism do not oppose, court, mutually fertilize. One brings metrics, another provides myths, and together they stop an art of healing that crosses times. Let's exemplify. Functional magnetic resonance studies reveal that sounds at 136.10 Hz activate regions associated with empathic emotion. Clinical trials suggest that 128 Hz stimulates the release of vocal nitric oxide. Biophotons reports indicate that certain frequencies increase the coherence of cell emission of light. Let's put it in a poetic story. It is as if the cells, listening to the universe, will remember that they are also small pulsatile galaxies. And another return, to carve the truth from another angle. When we see videos of cymatics, arns and liquids forming mandalas when they are crossed by waves, we witness what happens within us. Each chakra, each organ, each cornea is a water lake that draws living flowers to the beat of a planetary note. From everyday practice to intimate miracle. If someone decides to deliver 5 minutes a day to each frequency, we'll end, after a week, with 30-5 minutes of stellar travel. Let's describe it with another poetic metric. 30-5 minutes is less than 1% of the 20-4 hours, but it is enough to sow an internal revolution that shakes centuries of oblivion. Another reformulation: investing half an hour in a handful of correct hertzios is equivalent to sowing in the fertile land of consciousness a forest that will shade generations of cellular memories. The doubt of many persists: what if I don't hear anything special? Let's say it with multiplied compassion: it doesn't matter, because sound travels in the body even when the mind does not record fireworks. the effect can be subtle as the germination of an outbreak that, in appearance, does not move, and yet, under the earth, thousands of roots explore the darkness. Again, it's like turning on a candle in an enlightened room. It seems redundant, but each flame adds heat and modifies the conversation of the photons. Whoever perseveres discovers nuances. One afternoon he feels that the voice comes out clean, another morning warns that the beats mark a calm compass, another night dreams with cathedrals of light where his name resonates in a choral voice. This is once again and again, because each redication records a deepest groove. The body retains the music of everything that he once believed lost. Polyphonic testimonial narration. Mario, a pilgrim of meditative deserts, affirms that Jupiter's tone opened an inner eye from which he was able to contemplate landscapes of hope even in the storm. Sarah, a poet of frantic cities, declares that the frequency of Venus stroked her chest and returned the ability to give without reserve hugs. Amira, dancing of diverse origins, says that the vibration of the moon reconciled him with the softness of tears. Story after story, names that vary, geographies that change, the essence is reiterated, the sound becomes balm, mirror, claraboya. We repeat with another current of examples. A symphonic musician integrates these hertzios in unconventional affinations and says he feels that the auditorium breathes in unison. A yoga teacher replaces the usual planetary pulses and observes that the class closes the eyes without instruction. An incredulous scientist exposes cells to 183.58 Hz and is surprised to see how the apoptosis index decreases. The stories are piled up as petals in a persistent wind. Each petal is the evidence that the cosmic symphony, when it is embodied, writes healing parables in languages that we are still learning. Concatenated metaphors that never conclude imagine that each frequency is a key. The keys open doors, the doors lead to the stairs climb to Torres, the towers hold bells, the bells are rock and generate sounds that, again, weave keys. Another renewed vision, each note is a river. The rivers come together in a delta, the delta flows into a sea, the sea evaporates and forms clouds, the clouds rain on mountains, the mountains originate new rivers. One more, different metaphor, to densify the experience, each frequency is a thread, the threads form tapestries, the tapestries cover altars, the altars wake up prayers, the prayers become other threads. And so the story continues, as an infinite accounts necklace, each account repeating the same pearl of wisdom with a different nuance, each word vibrating with the possibility of becoming music. The entire universe whispers to us in octave languages, semifuses, silences punctuated by stellar breaths. Behind each inner astronaut that takes off there is a frequency choir waiting to refine the trips of the trip. We insist once again, in a voice that does not rest, the planets sing our name, and every time we respond to the call, the distance between the one and the whole shrinks until it becomes a unanimous beat. Thus the story becomes curl, the tail bites like a melodic Ouroboros, and in each lap add a more resonance layer, a vibration that crosses the borders of the marrow, an evocation that I do not know. Extinguish, because every time it seems to be consummated, it turns on again in an acoustic rebirth that reverberates as an endless swell on the internal wall of the senses. Display other variation, so that the warp does not stop. Imagine a forest where each trunk is a fingerboard, where the branches are harpated to heaven, where the wind, that faceless messenger, disseminates thousands of notes that collide with each other, embrace and stop new chords. The body, walking through that imaginary forest, recognizes its own sap vibrating in unison. The knees become hollow drums, blood in polyphonic torrent, breathing in a sweet flute that accompanies what never silences. Again, let's describe it with another nuance to prolong the stream. Each inhalation is an elevator that runs through the 7 floors of the inner temple. When stopping at each plant, root, sacred, plexus, heart, throat, third eye, crown open its doors and releases a tiny choir that sings the secret name of the corresponding planet. In exhalation, that choir melts into a single vowel, elongated and round, which returns to the universe with the gratitude of having been heard. Let's add a story too. Thicken the sound mist. They say that in a remote Tibetan monastery, the monks carried earmuffs made of fine sandalwood. They said that, when supporting them on the walls, they heard the edge of the earth raised in upper octaves. It was said that these earmuffs, Baptist Edgar Now Ling, transformed the prayers into spheres of light that ascended by the chimney of the world. The legend persists not for its literalness, but because it injected into modern imagination the conviction that even the walls sing, and that listening to that song awakens stone and star memories at the same time.
Let's turn the spiral again, with an almost culinary approach. Vibration is a primary broth where invisible ingredients float.
A gram of sun brings heat, a hint of moon brings freshness, a leaf of Venus perfumates with sweetness, a grain of Mars sazona with ossadia, a drop of Jupiter expands the palate, a breath of Uranus squeaks as an electrical spice, a Pluto brizna grants umami depth that lasts in the gusty memory of the marrow. When sipping this broth with each cell, the organism rewrites its secret recipes and learns to serve itself a full consonant soup. We will reiterate the same concept from a literary marine angle. We are ships with candles made of eardrum, the planets are headlights that emit luminous pulses and, at the same time, sonic, we sail through waves of frequencies that shape emotional tides. Every time we adjust the candle to the correct note, the cosmic wind drives the ship effortlessly. But if the note desists, the ship shakes. I repeat it and repeat, so that it is serious as a tattoo on the back of understanding. The key is not to row with fury, but to refine the candle with the song of the universe. Let us follow. Then, with glass metaphors, imagine a Gothic cathedral where the stained glass windows vibrate. When Neptune's note touches the deep blue of the rosette, he lights from the inside, as if the glass contained a private northern dawn. In another corner, the frequency of Mercury makes the fine pinnacles tintinnier, causing light dust rains that never touch the ground. Every step inside that cathedral accentuates a nuance. Each visitor beat melts with the beat of invisible arbitants. And so, the architecture becomes score, the stone becomes a phonograph, the story becomes an echo that continues to travel spiral.
A new semantic conversion. Vibration is also a thread of DNA that sings.
Genetists talk about the expression of genes. In our sound plot, the expression is a microscopic aria singing by propellers that rotate as a dancer / at S indefinable. When the correct frequency brushes its helical surface, genes respond as tiny fingerboard, opening their protein gates with the elegance of a curtain that rises to show a choreography still not seen. I repeat it in children's story, the genes are asleep that wake up when they hear their favorite melody. As temporal and at the same time markedly contemporary, the phenomenon lends itself to technological explorations. Engineers have developed biofeedback devices based on planetary frequencies. Sensors placed on the skin convert cardiac variability into dance lights, synchronized with 126.22 Hz del Sol or 136.10 Hz of the Earth. Again, I narrated with another aesthetic. It is as if the body would recharge in an invisible light plug, and, in doing so, the colors of life were saturated, the contrast was exacerbated, and the daily plot acquired cinematographic grain. Critical voices emerge that work. Won't it be self-suggestion? We respond from the tenderness of the multiplication of examples. Even if it were, autosuggestion is a powerful note on the human scale, and if this note is refined with a celestial chord, the muta-placebo effect on miracle cultivated with care. But there is more. Blind double studies in university laboratories have detected variations consisting of cardiac coherence and alpha thermal activity by exposing volunteers to random planetary sounds. We repeat it in a brocade of romanticism. Science does not dethrone magic. He wrapped it with layers of evidence that make it even more fascinating. Let's now immerse Marco, a sound engineer who, after a decade designing PA for stadium systems, discovered the planetary frequencies. He adjusted his digital console so that each bass note of the band will align with 128 Hz of Venus. He says that the public, without knowing the reason, remained at the end of the concerts in a reverential silence, crying eyes, as if they had witnessed an initiatory ceremony. We could recover it with another name, Anna, with another profession, marine biologist. The story will resonate the same. After integrating the pulse of 183.58 Hz during the dives of study, he noticed that the dolphins approached with unusual confidence. Let's upload the volume of symbolism. Each planet carries an archetype. When singing your note, we invoke archetypes within the psychic theater. Thus, Saturn not only resonates as a serious disciplinary, it becomes a bridge towards mineral patience, glacial constancy. Jupiter is not just an expansion resonator, he is a trumpeter who announces philosophical parties in the halls of the mind.
Pluto rumbles as a timbal of underground transformations, his blow makes the masks expired so that the essential face emerges with obsidian brightness. When stating this again and again, the psyche finds new corridors where to host her understanding. Let's go back to the root with the shamanic optics. When hitting a calibrated Siberian drum to 194.18 Hz, practitioners claim to travel to the land of the earth, or a heart of crystalline iron beats. That beat, replicated in the long tibia bone, generates tribal memory discharges that cover entire lineages in an instant. Let's rewrite it with Afro-Peruvian airs. The Creole drawer, when it refines at that same frequency, is transformed into a spiritual boat that crosses the Pacific and returns to the ancestors the possibility of singing with the grandchildren born centuries later. Moving to the celestial field once again, astronomers have made Jupiter radio data into audio. When reproducing it, clicks, storm roars, spectral buzzes are perceived. A sound artist incorporated those samplers in guided meditation for the third eye and discovered that participants reported visions of galaxies devouring nebulae in a synchronous waltz. Telling this in loop reinforces the idea that the universe is not silent, but orchestra chorals that only expect to be translated into an audible range. Even so, translation is not the final experience. The audible is the mask. Behind vibrates the ineffable, a stratum where sound and silence collapse in the same crib. I re-expose it with a Buddhist breath. The finger that indicates the moon is not the moon, but without finger, perhaps we would never look up. Planetary frequencies are that sound finger that points to the luminous vacuum of being. Every time we listen, the signal redirects to a center that does not vibrate, a hole of stillness that, paradoxically, is the source of all vibration. Keep turning the wheel. Imagine a kaleidoscope made of notes. Each turn reconfigures the auditory colors of the chakras. At one time, a radiant pattern appears where the root is intertwined with its throat through a scarlet and overseas bridge. You toured a little more, and a mandala arises in which the heart and the solar plexus merge into rosaceo gold. Each pattern is ephemeral and, nevertheless, leaves beauty scars in the spiritual retina. The more tours, the more impossible the mosaic is described with words, and yet, here I am, spinning descriptions that pursue the unspeakable, because in the persecution another layer of verbal music is born. We return to practice, some therapists suggest. Binaural combinations, where each ear receives a derivative of the central frequency. An example, 126.22 Hz on the left, 127.22 Hz on the right, generating a pulse of 1 Hz, the delta rhythm of the repair sleep, especially the solar bass. Others mix isochronic beats with fifth righteous harmonizers, creating a swell that surrounds the listener in expanded consciousness capsules. I reiterate it to cement, each technique is a door, each door a hall, every hall a secret camera where the echo multiplies and walks alone. Now, let the word become river again and flow towards the imagination of suspended gardens. There, the planets hang as light fruits. Each fruit, when touched, issues a chord. Each chord, by spreading, matures other fruits. It is a self-sustaining ecosystem of vibration and sweetness. The chakras are the roots that climb through the trunk of the spinal axis and open in the glass of leaves. Each leaf perspires a microfrequency that is confused with dew. At dawn, the entire garden sings a psalm that floods the air with light perfume. I continue, adding another story, so that the current is not extinguished. An old woman from the Andes says that, when placing a snail in her ear, "Haith lavos del cerro." When a musician analyzed the sound of that snail, he discovered harmonics that fit with 210.42 Hz. The grandmother said, that is the moon kissing the end rail of the mountain. Stories such as this pivot between myth and measurement, and in that interstitio the vital reverberation I hold is intensified, which I repeat, that food. And I don't cease. I return to the bridge between repetition and novelty. Every time I repeat, the word is the same and different, as identical waves in shape but different in substance, each made of new water.
The repetition is, therefore, the strategy of the ocean to teach us that eternity fits in a round trip. Thus, when repeating frequencies, we reprogram the neuronal custom, synapses reformed, the pattern is renewed, mute skin symphony. Let us immerse ourselves in the psychedelic dimension. Under light microdoses of legal intelligence, researchers record that planetary frequencies generate fractals even more vivid. Who listens to 183.58 Hz perceives green-blue geometries that expand spiral, 221.23 Hz produces pink carmesic waterfalls that fall in slow motion. The mind becomes planetarium. The cranial dome projects internal constellations that revolve, superimposed on the beat. Let's corroborate this story with another metaphor. It is the sensory equivalent of seeing star rains while walking through a fluorescent forest, but let's not reduce the miracle to the extraordinary, also live in the flat. When a baby raises his voice, his crying is one at frequencies that touch the tuning of Venus. Maybe that's why the maternal chest is softened immediately, responding to the call with warm milk. A plain the white noise of a waterfall contains spectra that include lunar notes. Who sleeps to the water lullaby is connected without knowing it with the night mother of silver organs. And while the voice continues, a prolonged syllable layer is overlap in the auditory memory, A-E-I-O-U, each vowel a chakra, each chakra a door, each door an echo. This vibratory alphabet, repeated in many languages, Sanskrit, Latin, Quechua, Nahuatl, demonstrates that humanity has unconsciously conspired to sing the same scale. The names of gods, mothers, homelands, lovers, all range on a spectrum of notes that yearn to adjust their internal fingerboard to the great celestial chord. We remain in this yearning, reviving it with infinite images. We see comets that when crossing the atmosphere terrarian hypersonic octaves, heard only by the bones. We see auroras that throb in visual frequencies equivalent to the tones that do not fit in the ear. The view and ear melt, eyes that hear, eardrums that see. Each sensory exchange its mask, amplifying the mystical experience of inhabiting a body that no longer knows where it ends and where the cosmos begins. And it still remains more to be deployed, because the universal orchestra never exhausts its repertoire. When we believe we have heard all the notes, a hidden microtonality arises in the gloom of another planet still to discover. Maybe orbit a distant star, singing a frequency that will open a chakra beyond the crown, a secret flower that still has no name. This mere possibility vibrates now, in words that are anticipated to the finding and invoke it to exist. And the wheel revolves, and the wave beats, and the snake bites the tail once again, creating flashes that mix with the background silence, a silence of future chords that, when taking off the word, seal another cycle of sound breathing, inviting us to inspire, to exhale, to inspire.